Guess what just came in the mail today? New tires for the Suzuki FZ50. Now, I had a hell of a time finding these tires. These are, I believe, 3x12s, and they don't really sell these anywhere in the U.S. Unless you're buying trail tires for an old, like an old Honda trail bike or something. This is not a common size for the United States. Yeah, that's an understatement. I had to, these actually probably came directly from China. I found them on eBay. Let's take a look. So the thing is, this particular tire size is not used on anything that was ever popular in the U.S., hence the lack of availability. And like I said, I mean, you know, the trail bikes use the same tire size, many different models from different companies, manufacturers. But they are trail tires and they're knobby. In fact, it looks like the previous owner had the same problem, as the rear tire is in fact a trail tire. But that is not what originally came on this bike. It would have originally come with a tread pattern similar to this. These were $60 for the set. And they're made by Wang Tire. Yeah. And they're wrapped in this shiny stuff. Everything, of course, is in Chinese, but the size is definitely legible. So this is interesting. Let me open up this wrapping and see what we got. So, we've got some tire specs here. Load range, 441 pounds, at 280 kilopascals, 40 psi. It's a 52J, so it's J rated. Tube type, 3x12, nylon. One thing missing, and I hope when I go to get the bike inspected that they don't notice this, but these are not DOT approved at all. And I've got this, I was trying to be discreet with these tires, you know, rolling on imported tires, and then this shows up on there, like, yeah, look at me, I'm Chinese. Alright, that's alright. This bike isn't going to see a lot of road time anyway, so I'm not that worried about it. And these got a top speed of 35 miles an hour, so I don't think we're going to have a problem with that. Now I think that's going to go on our front wheel. These are universal front or rear, because the front and rear tires on this bike are the same. There's no difference between the two. I'm going to pull the front wheel off, and first thing we need to do is try to get that tire off the wheel so I can get the tire or the rim painted. I need to paint the rim. So for now we're going to take the tire off. I'm going to paint the wheel with the tire off, and then we're going to put the new tire on. Hopefully this works out. I've never done this before. I made a video once on how to replace a tire on a Honda Helix, and it generated more angry comments than any other video I've ever produced, because I didn't show people how to change the tire on the rim. Well, the truth is, I've never done that before. I've always brought the bike to the shop and had them do it. I bring them the wheel, they install the tire. Because I don't have the room in my condo for tire changing equipment. But I reckon that these wheels are so small that I might be able to do the job with these $5 murder bars from Harbor Freight. These are called murder bars because that's what they're generally used for. Of course, we need to start by removing the front wheel. And on this bike, when the engine and rear wheel are installed, you can remove the front wheel and it will balance itself out, which is kind of convenient. Alright, it looks like my axle bolt is actually a 10mm, which is scarily surprising, but that's okay. 10 millimeter axle. No, wait a minute. Hold up the phone there. That's a 12. It looks like it should be a 12. But it's not. What the hell size is it? It's not a 10. 10 is too small. I know it's not an 11. Either it's a rounded off 12, but yeah, you know, I think it might be an 11 millimeter. Seriously, that's surprising. Here's a 12 mil socket. No, it's definitely a 12, but that wrench doesn't fit. Okay then, well, that happened. I guess I have a defective wrench. Who would have thought? Alright. The other side is going to be a 14. And here we go. Oh, you know what? That's right. The nut was rounded off when I got it, so I might be putting a new axle on this sucker. Or I'll buy an 11 millimeter socket, and there we go. Alright. I forgot about that. Yeah, I noticed that when I put the new shocks on, that the bolt head was rounded off a little bit. Just a little bit too much. Okay. It shouldn't be too difficult to remove. I'm going to disconnect the brake cable here. Get that out of there. Because I'm going to need to repaint the hub and everything at the same time, so we'll take all that apart. We'll take the speedometer cable out. And we'll just take the hub with it. Okay. And get our spacers out of the way. Okay. Get the hub out of there. And the hardware on the rug. Yeah, these bearings should probably be replaced, but I don't think I'm going to do that right now. Okay, now that was the easy part. The hard part is going to be getting this tire off the rim. That's going to be the grand difficult aspect. Really going to be hard. Okay, I don't have a bead breaker, so you'll see I'm wearing shoes. Those are going to come in handy for that. So let's get started. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to remove the valve stem with a valve stem remover tool. It looks like my new tubes. I bought 2 new tubes, by the way. The caps actually come with that little tool built right in. So we're going to stick that into the valve stem and rotate it. Looks like that isn't going to work. So these aren't really good enough for the job, so I'll just do it the other way. I'm going to just stick something in there, like a screwdriver. I don't think I have a valve stem remover outside of that thing, but this will work. Just takes longer. Or we could have fun with it and just stab the tire, but you know, safety and all. Oh, you know what? The tire is falling right off the bead. This may not be so hard. It's not even putting up a fight. Yep, there we go. It just fell off the bead completely. This is going to be an easy one. Okay. So this tire did not put up a fight. So now we're going to need a murder bar or 2. They actually sell tire spoons for this very job, but these were cheap. These were $5 at Harbor Freight. And if anyone ever gets up in my face, there we go. Okay, that's one. And I'm going to need to get the other one off. And to think, I've been paying a shop $30 a tire to do this for me for years, and I could have just done it myself. How hard could it possibly be? I'm going to get this one underneath. People have been severely injured changing tires, believe it or not. It isn't as easy as it should be, but there we go. Now, one thing you could do to make this job a little bit easier is to get some tire. There's a bead lubricant you can buy that allows the tire to slide nicely on the bead, and it makes the job a lot easier, and you run the risk of or less risk of damaging things. So I think once you get it off a little bit like that much, you can take this tool and kind of work the tire off the rim. Yeah. You're going to do this again when you install the new wheel. Never done this before, guys, so cut me some slack, alright? Never done this before. Not on a motorbike. Bicycle, yes. Motorbike, no. The difference is, bicycle tires are meant to be installed by hand without really any special tools. These are not. Yeah. This is how your tire, your rim gets all scratched up when you bring it to the shop to have the tires changed. This is what happens. Once you get the first bead off, it should be pretty easy from there. But I believe that replacing them would be a smart move, since I do not know how old they are. In fact, this one looks to be significantly elderly, so it's not the best looking tube I've seen. There we go. Now this tube, especially if you take the tube out and you find patches on it, you really probably should just replace it at that point. But oftentimes they can get punctured if this is the first time you've ever changed a tire like this. Puncturing the tube happens. It just happens. So, right. Now it should be pretty easy to get the tire off. Like that. Try not to stab yourself in the face. Up. There we go. Alright, that's one. Now let's see if we can put the new tire on without killing ourselves. When installing a tubeless tire, you want to install the tire first, of course. But it's also important to make sure that if you have a directional tire, that it is installed in the correct direction. Normally they'll be marked with an arrow somewhere on the sidewall. But they do have a very prominent badge on the side, and I'm going to make that visible. That's going to be on the right side of the bike, so the wheel is oriented in this direction, so the tire is going to go on like that. And that is how you would install a tire on a rim. No, really. I ended up doing this off camera because there was enough swearing in this video to make Andrew Dice Clay blush. The reality is this is not easy to do, and but fortunately I was able to practice on one. I learned a few tips and tricks in the process to hopefully make the rear tire a little bit easier. So I've taken my rear tire and I have taken one of my old tubes, stuffed it in there, and inflated it to spread the tire apart. Because what I found was one of the hardest things to do was to get the tire on one bead at a time. This tire went on with both beads at once. That may be okay in a pinch if you're doing a tubeless tire, but we have to install a tube after. And I found the hardest thing was to insert the tube while the tire was trying to squeeze my fingers together. Not good, man. That was no fun. So I theorized that if I take this old tube, stuff it in there, pump it up full of air, and spread the tire apart, it'll make installation just that much easier. Also, you will scratch your rims. Absolutely, it will happen. So what I've done is I took the rim apart to make painting it a little bit easier. But I brought these pieces outside and I painted them, and we'll be reassembling them at a later time. Alright, now we're going to install this new rear tire onto our 12-inch rim. I did mention earlier, but smaller tires are not as pliable as larger ones. They're a bit trickier, but we can do this. Right now we're going to be removing the tube that we use to stretch our rear tire. And as you can see, in just a moment, that tire is nice and stretched. Now that gives us the ability to install the tire one bead at a time, giving us the ability to manipulate the tube inside the tire while it is partially mounted to the rim. This is critical. Okay, now we need to liberally soap the bead of the tire as well as the rim. I'm using liquid Dawn dish detergent. I'm using a very generous amount of soap, and I'm also applying this mixture to the rim as well. We're not going to bother soaping up the other side because we're not there yet. Just do the first bead and then we'll get to the other. Now this is where the really tricky part comes in. We have to get part of that bead seated on that rim, and you can see I'm using a murder bar and using my feet as well. And this is very tricky. This is going to take some practice and a lot of patience. Make sure that you are well hydrated and not of unsound mind when attempting this. This is the hardest part, but we can do it. So for this part, we're going to speed the video up just a bit. I want you to see the motions that I had to go through in order to get this tire on. If I had one of those bead locking tools, it would have made the job just a little bit easier, but I do not. All we used is pure strength, some murder bars, and some soap. I also want to point out that at this stage you will scratch your rim if you are out of practice. This is the second one I've done, and I will say the other thing is expanding the tire made this job 100% easier than it was when I did the front rim. That was definitely a good move on my part. And it could work on larger tires as well if you have a tube of that size. And you can use the same tube over and over again and just keep it in the workshop if you've got, if you don't want to damage a new tube, that's one way to do it. Now in this step, we're going to take our new tube and we're going to pre-inflate it just a bit. And that'll get the tube into the proper shape without any wrinkles. I got this suggestion from a fellow YouTuber and I cannot think of which one it was, but thank you whoever you are for this trick. Pre-inflating the tube does help getting it back into the tire. Alright guys, at this point we're going to be getting that tube fully deflated after we did the pre-inflation, and then we're going to manipulate it into the tire, trying to get it into the valley of the rim where it belongs. And then once we do that, we're going to use the the extra space that we gained in that tire by pre-stretching it. We're going to be using that space to help manipulate the valve stem into the rim. So you can see the valve stem is still hanging out, and in just a moment we're going to be I'm going to stuff my hands up in there, and we're going to push it into the little valley where it goes, and it'll just kind of pop right through. It's good to have the nut that holds the valve stem in place at hand for this step, because you want to get that nut on there as soon as possible so that it doesn't come dislodged. And here we go. And you can see the hole right there, and I'm trying to get my hands up in there. This was nearly impossible when I did the first tire because it had been completely collapsed from shipment. So I was trying to pull the tire apart and get my hands in there at the same time, and it was not easy. Okay, did we get it in yet? Yeah, there we are. So now I'm putting the nut onto the valve stem, and then I'm going to work on getting the rest of the tube into the valley of the rim, and then we're going to proceed to locking the second bead into the rim. Okay, now we're going to liberally apply our lubricant solution, which once again is liquid Dawn dish detergent and water, and heavy on the dish detergent, I must emphasize that. And then we're going to take our murder bar and we're going to work the bead on a little at a time, as we did with the other one. And this part was a little trickier than I expected. It kept slipping from one side to the other, so I'd get one side of the bead in, then I'd work on the other side, and I didn't have enough. Apparently I don't weigh enough, you know, to push it down and stay down, you know. So this took a little bit of practice, and we're going to speed this video up, and you'll see just how I did it. Alright, at this point, I'm in the final home stretch. I'm in the last quarter or so of the tire, and I had to reapply several coats of solution as it was drying too quickly. At this point, I am sweating profusely, and I am tired. I haven't had lunch yet, and I'm like losing my mind. But as you can clearly see, the more you get on, the easier it is to get the rest on. I mean, it really does, it does help to get, and there we go. We're almost there. Up, up, up. I think I stepped on it with my foot to get the rest, the final couple inches in there, but we're on. We did it. We replaced a tire. And it, I think honestly though, in retrospect, I would rather pay $30 to have somebody else do this. This is not something I ever want to do again. This was a pain in the neck. Of course, now that I've done it twice, I can do it again, and I'll probably just, you know, do it myself, but it was no fun. This is not fun. But once you get your first tire on the rim, you realize that it really is doable, even with the wrong tools. I mean, I'm using two $5 Harbor Freight murder bars and some Dawn dish detergent. That's all I'm really using for tools, and I was able to get the job done. And as far as damage to the rim goes, I did scratch it in several spots, but I was able to cover it up as I still have some of that paint left, and I was able to patch up the major scratches, and I'm pleased with the result. And here's the end result. We have the rear wheel and the front wheel. Now the front wheel was the first one I did, obviously, and it was the hardest because I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't stretch the tire out at all, and I had a hell of a time getting this sucker on there. But there she is, all nice and mounted. And I've also, of course I didn't show this yet in the video, I don't think, but yeah, this is what the backer plate ended up looking like. I scratched it here with a tool, unfortunately, but it's not that noticeable. But I think this looks very nice on this bike. And like I said, this thing isn't going to really see a lot of road time, so having, you know, low quality wheels or tires like this is, well, not only do I not have a choice in the matter because there's only so many tires available in this size, but these are going to hold up just fine, I'm sure. And the rear, I just got the muffler back on, and that is how it came out. I am very pleased, very pleased. Now I feel more confident that I can do my own tire changes. I may buy some other tools like those little hand tire spoons. Those might make the job that much easier. But if I do this again, there you go. Finished job, finished project. What's next? Well, we have a lot to do. The fuel tank, I've removed the fuel tank to repaint it. I have to order a can of 2K clear so that I can paint it with my Rust-Oleum Cherry Red, which is a very good match to this, by the way. In fact, I'll show you how close. I think I have one of these panels here. This is the Rust-Oleum Cherry Red, and this is the factory paint. On camera, it's almost unnoticeable, the difference, but in real life, I think it'll be just fine. So I have to get the appropriate materials to finish that part of the job. I'm waiting for a can of 2K clear to come in the mail. I can't buy it locally, nobody sells it. And we'll get the the tank painted, the headlamp housing painted, and I think I have some other odds and ends that need to be done too. So this is coming out nicely. I'm very happy. I am pleased with this so far. The engine runs like a charm. These wheels and tires look really nice on this bike. In that color scheme, I think white is really the only way to go on this. And it's also the easiest to touch up. See, if I were to use a metallic silver on these wheels, touching up silver is very hard because you have to pretty much recoat the entire thing. Silver doesn't lay down like solid colors do. Touch-ups and repairs are very noticeable because the metallics have to lay out basically all at once. The metallic materials that are suspended in the paint, it's hard to explain, but you can't just touch it up like you can with a solid color like white or black. It doesn't work that way. So, alright, onward and upward.